Okay. Hey everyone, on Tuesday I uploaded a video asking you guys to ask me questions because the channel hit 3k subs and I hit 3k videos uploaded. So here are the questions with my answers. Zach Nafane, who does the moderation in my streams when I do them, and generally joins me for Monster Hunter, asked a couple. First up, coffee, tea, or neither? Coffee. Definitely coffee. I drink a lot of tea as well, but I usually start the day with 3 cups of coffee, more or less. It's like a cup and then my travel mug. I drink them both, but if I had to choose one, if I were forced to choose one, it would be coffee. He also asks, are you going to upload Overwatch? That's an interesting question with a really complex answer. The first part is I really enjoy playing Overwatch. I play it multiple times a week, about as many times as I play Grim Dawn, or at least go into Grim Dawn to record a video. And I'd really like to upload videos for Overwatch. I would not make the channel an Overwatch channel. I would not bury other videos in Overwatch videos. It'd be like a once a week type of thing. And I think I would either do a series that's just like a casual perspective on the game. Like you want to be competent at the game, but you don't really care about being the best at the game. Or I would do it as get me the hell out of gold. A series of videos where I try to get out of the gold ranking, which I've been stuck in for a while now in Season 2. I've been stuck in it for, it might be me, honestly. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, I'm the best at this game, why aren't I best rated? No, I'm like, you know, maybe it is kind of me, but I also think I've been really unlucky in pulling teams that do things. And it might be because I play like Reinhardt and supports, and like you have very little control over the game if you play like tanky tanks and supports. You're pretty much reliant on everyone still working together. Like you can't solo the game like you can a lot of times with Zarya or something at that level. I'm just not good at Zarya. So it's like, yeah, I'm maybe stuck there a little bit because of me, but also because we get like the useless DPS all the time that run off on their own, get killed, and then complain when the team didn't carry them. So yeah, kind of stuck in a not great area of the game in competitive. So I might consider doing videos on that, trying to get out of gold, at least to platinum and maybe to diamond, or doing casual videos about it. Now the problem with that is the people that like are gonna absorb this stuff, and a lot of the people that play this game, I don't want to say are jerks, but this is playing into why I'm not playing a lot of competitive lately. People are really jerks in this game sometimes. Especially if you're, like, I really love playing, say, Ana, who, for people that don't know, is a sniper that shoots people to heal them. And she can turn around and pop enemies, because she's a sniper. And I'm really good at healing people with her. But whenever I pick Ana, even now, when the game's meta is getting heavily into her, they'll complain about it. To the point where the team starts just being trolly and not playing anymore. It's just one of those things where I want to post videos about this game. I just don't know if they do well, for one, on this particular channel, or if they'd be received well enough. Not by the fandom, mostly by the people that take the game way too seriously, who think they're really awesome when they really aren't. I don't know, it's one of those things where I have reasons why I'm not doing it right now. But I also really would like to do it. And actually, I'm gonna ask for feedback on that in the comments below, if you guys had any thoughts on that. And I'd just really like to know. So, Zach's third and final question. You wouldn't by any chance be interested in playing a role-playing game on Roll20? Nothing set in stone yet, but I want to get back into that more often. I'm playing D&D in real life, but only every couple of months, and that's not enough for me. So, I might not register because my webcam's a piece of crap, but this is a Wii U gamepad right here. Right above that, right there, and going behind this TV right here are all Pathfinder RPG books. And for anyone that doesn't know, Pathfinder is sort of like Dungeons and Dragons, specifically Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, but like 3.5 plus, sort of like 3.75. It takes a lot of what 3.5 was, and it drops a lot of the crap, buffs everything up a little bit, tones down the cleric, druid, and wizard so that they're like reasonable. I mean, they're still ridiculously powerful in the right hands, but they're sort of toned down. The answer is I'd love to do that, and actually if we could do it in Pathfinder, that'd be amazing. But that's mostly because like the Advanced Player's Guide in Pathfinder is probably my favorite RPG book, and that's a large part due to the alchemist class in that book being so ridiculously awesome and exactly what I want to play. But also I tend to play Magus and Investigator. I haven't played an Investigator yet, but I'd really like to. It's basically an alchemist. And I do have kind of a mean wizard sometimes. Depends on how deep I go into that ridiculous type of spell casting. And I tend to pick spells where it's utility over everything else. So I do a ton of work as a wizard in a D20 system. But yeah, I'd love to do that, especially Pathfinder. But I'd probably be open for just vanilla Dungeons and Dragons too. So let me know in the future. So Demos113 enjoyed all of your Grim Dawn vids and keep up the good work. Smiley face. Though not technically a question, thank you regardless. So Tech Doubles asks, what specs is in your PC? So what are my PC specs? Here, let me show you. So my PC, I kind of built it on a budget, and it's a couple years old. So I don't really want to share the specs on it because they're not great. In fact, they're a little embarrassing to me, and I kind of want a new PC. So I'm probably going to be buying new parts, except for the graphics card. My graphics card's a GTX 970 Rev 2, the one with that like super oh so special cooling system. And I'd probably just move that over into a new PC setup if I could. I mean, this has been a workhorse, but I built it for like $500, and I'm a little proud that it's been running for 2 years and it's been running so smoothly, but I definitely need something new. I don't know if that gag was worth it or not. So, Stilius asks, really well done on the 3K, mate. My question is, are you interested in playing something like Divinity Original Sin? I think you'd be really good at that. Not a Q&A question. Is it really? Yeah, it is, actually. I do think that's a good Q&A question. Divinity Original Sin has been on my Steam wishlist for a long time. I think ever since Ziggy D played it. I looked at it and I was like, this is a lot like Arcanum of Magic and Steamworks Obscura. And I haven't looked it up, but I wouldn't be surprised if a dev from that old Sierra game ended up on Divinity Original Sin, because that game is a lot like that. I mean, it could just be a huge coincidence because it does have that like classic RPG vibe with the way the game's set up. So yeah, that's been a game that's been on my list for a while. The only reason I haven't gotten picked it up yet is I want to maybe get the 2-pack and play it with my brother, because we did that Diablo 3 sci-fi talk thing a while back, and I wouldn't mind attempting that again, but his schedule is wonky sometimes, and you know, getting him to participate can be even worse. Before the next Divinity game comes out, because I think there is a new one coming out, I'll probably get that regardless of if I do the two-player setup or not, because it does look like a game I'd really like to play. So, Call Me Smiggy has 3 questions here. Always a pleasure to watch your videos. They help me a lot in Grim Dawn. Thank you. Question 1. How is your new car? Giant laughy face. It's awesome. Question 2. Do you think there's a viable rifle build in Grim Dawn right now? The answer is, I think there is absolutely a ultimate viable rifle build in Grim Dawn. So for me, there are 2 kinds of builds. There's like viable and Nemesis viable. So let's just say Nemesis and viable. So like viable is you can go into ultimate and you can basically take on everything in ultimate eventually with your build, and you can do it pretty smoothly. Nemesis viable, like the super efficient builds, are like the ones that are just above that, like the S tier compared to the A tier. Those would be like an Albrecht's Aether Ray build. Whatever Ja just posted in the forums. I'm sure he just posted something that does that. Xenos Saboteur build. Like, they're just builds that can handle all sorts of crap handle all sorts of Nemesis crap in ultimate difficulty. And those are what I would consider, like, the top tier builds. I consider those beyond viable. Like, viable to me, as a term, is anything that can handle ultimate. So, I don't know if there's a rifle build that can handle Nemesis spawns. But I know you can do it just running ultimate. And the build I'd consider running would be something like, you take that Aether legendary rifle that has the 100% pierce chance, and you combine it with Amarasta's Blade Burst. And I have a character that uses Amarasta's, which has several videos on the channel. And I'm thinking of just giving him that rifle because I have like 3 of those damn things. And trying to make it work. Because I've been told, I have to test this still, Amarasta's Blade Burst, when you have a weapon that pierces like that, the piercing shots will actually, when they pierce, if they're the thing that's proccing Amarasta's, it pierces on every monster it hits. So you get like this chain of Amarasta's Blade Bursts. And that's got me curious about it. So I'm going to be trying that out in the near future. I'll probably post a video on it if it works. But yes, I think that would be build 1. That's the personal build. But you could also probably do it. I think is it Savagery? I think you can do 2-hand weapons with. Maybe Primal Strike I think can do 2-hand ranged weapons with. And I think you could do it with those, or in the Demolitionist tree, you could definitely pull it off. In fact, the Demolitionist set is a rifle set. But like I said, getting it to handle ultimate, I think, is completely within the realm of reason. Nemesis, yeah, probably you could do it if you're really, really highly tuned. But I'd consider that like viable plus. Viable rank 2. Viable plus 2. To use the Monster Hunter term. And finally, Call Me Smiggy asks, pizza or pizza? And the answer is pizza. So for pizza, my favorite place is Cloverleaf Pizza here in East Point. It is ridiculously delicious. It's Detroit style pizza. So it's square. You got like the burnt edges and burnt underneath, kinda. Just really, really crispy outside, and then it's all gooey in the center with the dough and cheese and stuff. And I'll probably have a picture floating around here somewhere of the pizza. I highly recommend anyone who comes to the area, this part of the world, to go and get it, because it's absolutely delicious, perfect pizza. So here's a name I'm gonna butcher. Yao Almeida, or Gorminus, asks, thank you so much for all your Grim Dawn videos. You're welcome. They've been helpful throughout all my gameplays. Now I'd like to ask if you ever considered making build videos for Path of Exile. It's a very solid action RPG, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Thanks for all your help, and keep it up. So, I have on this channel a Glacial Cascade Templar build from about a year ago. It's kind of old. It can handle Merciless pretty well. I think it actually is from before Herald of Lightning got sort of nerfed. Before you had to like do it differently. It's from way before they put in the subclasses. And I've considered doing more Path of Exile stuff because it's a huge action RPG. I'd probably, like, I'd consider doing races if I ever got good at the game, but I really like doing builds for games. And the problem with PoE is I don't want to play through it again. Like, I don't want to have to play through to Merciless a bajillion times. Like, once per every class, essentially. I almost, like, I know a lot of people would hate this, but if they just had, like, for $5 you can buy a character in Merciless, I'd probably do that and then go make build videos for it, just so I could skip all the steps. And it sucks, especially for someone like me, because I hate boosting. I think it gets really, really boring and kind of lame. So Like, I don't feel like I'd want to get boosted through the game with all these characters. But at the same time, I don't really feel like playing through PoE over and over and over again like I do with Grim Dawn. But yeah, should that feeling ever change in the near future, I may have to just hop on PoE anyways to get more action RPG videos, but that's another conversation for another time. So yeah, PoE has always been on like the back burner for me to go back to. I just haven't gotten to it yet. Mostly because I don't want to have to grind the Merciless a bajillion times. So Kirk Young asks, watch Grim Dawn videos religiously. They're all so good. Whether it be you having fun with your characters or your in-depth guides, they're just great. Thanks. Thank you so much. So, my question to you is, what is your favorite music genre and artist, and why? Don't stop doing what you're doing. So, my favorite musical genre is probably best explained by the fact that I have, like, this much hair, and I've had this much hair since high school. So, you might have guessed it, but my favorite musical genre is heavy metal. My favorite band is Iron Maiden. So, my second favorite band is probably Camelot. Within heavy metal, I tend to listen to power, prog, and doom metal. I'm not really big on death metal, specifically metal that gets like Cookie Monster growly, screamy vocals. So I tend to go with the more like Ride on a Dragon Unicorn over a rainbow, or I'm super depressed. super depressed angsty music, metal. And then the other aspect for heavy metal for me personally is in my head I kind of have like a map of metal where if I can find a band from a country that I haven't seen metal from, I'll throw them on my list of things I listen to a lot. So there's obviously a lot of American, European stuff, and all over Europe, not just Britain and Scandinavia. There's like a French metal band I know of, a bunch of Italian metal groups, obviously German metal groups. Fairly certain I know a Spanish one, just not off the top of my head. I'd have to actually look it up. And the two rarest that I'm kind of proud of that I know of are Al Namrud, who is they're a Saudi Arabian death metal band. And if you know anything about the laws in Saudi Arabia, they basically have to make their music in secret because their music is banned by the government. And it's Saudi Arabia, which means if they're found out, I'm sure they wouldn't actually be executed, but it's on the table. So it's like they're making friggin' folk death metal under penalty of death, and it's like that's the most metal thing ever. And then the other like obscure band is Skinflint, and they sort of came out of, it's a weird thing to say, it's Botswanan cowboy metal, because in Botswana in Africa there's a group of people who like Motorhead, and the cover of Ace of Spades, you know, the three group members all dressed as cowboys, sort of define their fashion sense. So there are a bunch of heavy metal cowboys in Africa. And like Botswana apparently has a very robust, I guess you could say, heavy metal scene that this band Skinflint, I think, came straight out of. So it's one of those words like the information is a little like mashed together with the cowboy thing and the African metal thing. But yeah, I think those are my two, like, I know these bands and they're from these weird places. So XX Habanero XX asks, Diablo 1 or Diablo 2? Diablo 2. So Dennis Diderot happened to ask a question that's kind of going to be related to a question earlier. Pizza, sausage or pepperoni, or some kind of bizarre vegetable thing. So my favorite pizza, as I mentioned, is Cloverleaf, and I actually like their just straight up pepperoni. But my go-to, if you wanted me to make like a crazy ass pizza, is pepperoni, ham, bacon, green pepper, onion. It's absolutely a delicious mix of flavors. It's horrible for you. Technically, you're getting vegetables, though, so it's not that horrible for you, ultimately. So, Kazad Othman. Always impressed by the effort you put into your Grim Dawn videos. I feel that this genre is... Oh, I feel this game is underappreciated, TBH. I agree. Keep it up. Only question is, how do you think the game is moving forward in the future? New classes, expansion, a sequel even, maybe? Okay, so, October for Grim Dawn is going to have, I think it's 7 new legendary sets. It's going to have rings getting tweaked for their elemental resistances they provide. And the high-level epic sets are going to get remade and refined and made better. So, before the year's out, we get an ethereal roguelike dungeon that I think Anasteria is giving us, and it's going to be somewhere in Burwich. For the entrance is going to be somewhere in Burwich. That's just this year. And next year, it's confirmed that they're doing one expansion. So, obviously no details exist about this one expansion, but it's going to happen. It's guaranteed to happen. And I believe they said they wanted to make the game a franchise. So if the expansion does well, and if they do more expansions and those do well, you're probably going to see a lot of Grim Dawn in the future. The game's done great this year. It was on the top most bought, downloaded, whatever games on Steam for like 2 weeks when it first came out. It's a huge early access Kickstarter success story. It's got brand recognition now. So I think the game's going to be doing great in the future. And we know we were getting at least one expansion, and I would not be surprised if in the far future we get Grim Dawn 2. Now for that expansion, I'm going to mention the things I'd like to see. I'd like to see at least 2 new masteries. I'm assuming they're just going to do one. And I'm assuming that we're guaranteed at least one. I would love 2 and would not be surprised by 2. Or more. And I'd love for one of them to be the Crate Entertainment take on a Necromancer, because everything they've done so far is their take on a classic archetype for a thing. So their Arcanist is your spellcaster, Soldier's your melee guy, Nightblade is a rogue, Shaman is a druid. I'd love to see them do a Necromancer. I know Necromancers are in all sorts of mods and stuff, but I want to see an official Necromancer. Like I think that is something they almost got to do. Everyone talks about getting one. Everyone wants one. I think it's an obvious place to go for it. Definitely in the future we're going to get new masteries and a new expansion. I think the other comment I've heard, it might be apocryphal though, is that they want more masteries than what Titan Quest had. And I think Titan Quest had 10? 11? So yeah, I'm all for that. I mentioned earlier, or wait, did I mention that earlier, or was that a previous take? This is my third take doing this today, actually, so I don't remember some things being in this video or a previous video. But one of my favorite aspects of Grim Dawn is the class creation. I'd really love more masteries to play with, to combine with all the classes and stuff that exist now in the game. Okay, Nick E. I recently had a query, but I figured this is the best place to ask. I'd like to set up a soldier with 2-hand, but not a warder, with Primal Strike. Is there a viable build that you have come across? I also haven't made it past level 40 on any characters, so I don't know what the end game itemization provides yet. Great job you've done on the channel, by the way. Thank you. For a non-warder 2-hand soldier, let's just start and say you're going to make this, like, you're in the soldier and that's going to be the core of your character. So your attack abilities are all coming from soldier. So your 2 options would be either Force Wave with Tremor or Blade Arc. And I think both work just fine. So with Force Wave and Tremor, you're basically spamming Force Wave. With Blade Arc, you're spamming Blade Arc. Both, I think, are completely viable in Ultimate. You might do a little more work. Have to do a little more work than a Primal Striker, but I think it's completely viable. With like what I mentioned earlier about builds being viable just because they can run the game, essentially. Yeah, I think it's totally viable to do that. And if you choose one of those abilities, you can actually combo it to the other classes really well. So with Force Wave, you're pretty much gearing physical and internal trauma damage. And those two are pretty easy to use in that you can pretty much couple the class with anything and they'll still work. So, let's say you go to the Battle Mage with Myvan Sphere of Protection. Yeah, there's that physical damage debuff, whatever. You'll get Myvan Sphere of Protection regardless. And then with Force Wave, because it procs off casting, or scales off casting speed, sorry, you can use Mental Alacrity with it. You can also pick up Inner Focus for a ton of offensive ability. Mirror of Orestes. It's a great defensive ability. And if you want to throw elemental damage in there, you can. You can take a Force Wave build, probably Demolitionist, pick up all those bombs. You could even go to Warder and get the passive ability the Warder has for two-handed. For using a two-hander, you can get all the totems as well if you don't want to use the Primal Strike stuff. You can go into the Witchblade and be really effective with both Force Wave and Blade Arc, because you'll have bleeding damage synergizing with the two trees. And then, I mean, the Witchblade combo brings like Doombolt and Sigil and Curse pets if you wanted them. Like, they're, I don't think I'd go with pets, honestly, but they're an option. You could do Blade Master, but that's really for more dual wielding. The bleeding stuff in that doesn't come till way later in the Blade Master, though. Like, good bleeding stuff. But there is, like, Anatomy of Murder, which gives you a ton of bleeding damage. So Blade Arc, you can actually use it with that. I have a character that uses Blade Arc, even though he is dual wielding as a Blade Master. So yeah, like, Force Wave and Blade Arc, you can actually customize it to pretty much any of the other classes. And they mesh together well. So you have a lot of options open for that type of character. But yeah, the core, obviously in Soldier, would be Blade Arc, or Force Wave with Tremor. And I do think it is completely viable. Death Tripping asks, what is it about Grim Dawn that makes it so good for this genre compared to other games? So, this is going to be a very long and complicated answer. So, there are three main aspects about Grim Dawn that, where it succeeds, makes it excellent for an action RPG. The first is the classes and class combos. The second is the world building, and the third is the itemization. So for the classes and class combos, let's start with itemization. So compare it to like Diablo 3. Diablo 3, it's like your 6 sets are your character. You'll have a couple other items thrown in there. Everything else is thrown away. Everything else becomes friggin' I don't even remember what they're called. Shards. Let's call them shards. Everything gets broken down in the crafting mats that you don't really use anyways. So, yeah, compare it to Grim Dawn, where... Oh, and in Diablo, every item has to be a game-changing, build-making item. And it just gets dull. I think I called it McDonald's once. Like, it's the McDonald's of action RPGs. But Grim Dawn... The itemization. So you have items where if you pick them up early in the game, can actually last you a really long time. You get that Chill Surge ring, it's going to last you until you find an Empowered Chill Surge ring. And that Empowered Chill Surge ring is going to last you until the end of the game. So it succeeds in that you have useful items that are useful for a long time. Then you do have a bunch of items that are build defining and game changing items. The Warpfire sword, dagger, whatever you want to call it. The Warpfire weapon, you take, like, say, a sorcerer, and it's like, oh, I'm dealing lots of fire damage with my attacks, and aether damage, and I'm using Electras to freeze things and debuff things. Well, you pick up a Warpfire, and suddenly Electras turns from, I'm just freezing things and debuffing them to, I'm setting them on fire while they're frozen, and, debuffing them to fire. Like, it changes an entire ability and can make that ability like the main ability of that class, that build, like that. And then you have items like Albrecht's Duality, where it's a ring, you get 2 of them, or you equip 1 of them with the Clairvoyant set. Clairvoyant set's another one, and it changes your build. Like, that made me work in Blackwater Cocktail and thermite mines into my Albrecht Aether Raid build. That's huge. Like, that's huge game-changing items in the endgame. But at the same time, they're items that are just useful to have. So you have like those Aether Reach gloves, where it's like you just land attacks and suddenly you're bolting things with these lightning bolts of Aether off of you in all sorts of directions. And it's like, that's just really helpful to have. It's not gonna make your build, it's not gonna break your build, but it's still a really good ability on an item. So, and there are plenty of things like that in the game as well. So it's got this whole gamut of things, just gamut of items. Just, there are the items that can get you through the game. There are end game items that are kind of more plain. There are end game items that are, useful, Golemborn Greaves. And then there are end game items that are kind of build defining, like Warpfire or the Clairvoyant set. And I love that mix for the itemization. Like, they did a home run, grand slam, knock it out of the park itemization in Grim Dawn. For the world design, a lot of action RPGs have you at the end of the world, where you're trying to stop just whatever big bad from destroying everything. Like, that's your goal. Diablo 2, that's your goal. You gotta stop Diablo from becoming Diablo and doing just Diablo things. And then, I mean, he becomes Diablo, but whatever. He doesn't get to do the Diablo things. And then you look at, like, Diablo 3. You gotta... What was the plot to that game again? I don't remember. You gotta stop Diablo from doing Diablo things. And you do. PoE. You gotta stop, Piety? I don't even remember what the X4 boss's motivations were either. But, yeah, you just gotta stop Piety from doing Piety things. And then whoever was above Piety, I don't remember his name either. The guy on the top of the tower, you just gotta stop him. You look at Grim Dawn. The world's gone. Like, the world's done. It's ended. You're after the end of the world. The apocalypse has happened. You didn't postpone it. It's done. You're surviving now. That makes Grim Dawn unique and different. It also helps that it's kind of a Victorian setting that got destroyed, so the aesthetic is different from other games as well. It's not just generic fantasy stuff. It's like, you got the pilgrim hats, you got like the long coats, and everything has this, like, it's grim, like it's Grim Dawn. They actually have it grim. Everything is dirty and worn until you find your legendary things, and even then it's still it's still a little on the jank side. Still got giant bolts and rivets in all of your armor. So yeah, the world that's been built is a world that's been destroyed. You're not fighting against the apocalypse anymore. This is after the apocalypse. What's happening? And I think that's awesome. It's post-apocalyptic, but it's not cheesily post-apocalyptic. It's not, let's rip off Mad Max post-apocalyptic. It's a unique kind of post-apocalyptic in its setting and the way the world is built. And then, like I mentioned, the class combinations that's probably my favorite part of the game, is it kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy Tactics. You can take two classes, combine all their abilities together, and that's your class. So you take your Arcanist and you combine it with a soldier, you get a battle mage, and it's its own thing, thanks to the unique abilities on Arcanist and unique abilities under soldier. You take Arcanist, you combine it with Nightblade, you get a arcane rogue thing. Plays completely different from a battle mage, has its own unique abilities and unique builds. You take the Arcanist, you combine it with a sorcerer, it becomes its own thing. It has its own builds it supports, etc, etc. You take an Arcanist, you combine it with the Occultist, it's a thing? I don't know what it is. Occult spellcaster guy, Mystic Theurge, whatever you want to call it, he becomes that. You combine it with the Shaman, you get the Druid, it's like you got the totems with the Arcana spells, and you get a completely different way of playing the game. And it's like that for all of the class combinations in the game. And I think that's one of Grim Dawn's biggest strengths, is you have this like I'm gonna build a soldier, and at level 10 I was like, oh, I get a second class? Well, I'm gonna jump on the Occultist and make a Witchblade, and the Witchblade is a Chaos Knight, and you can build chaos damage or internal trauma damage or physical damage, and depending on that it'll determine your abilities. And you can, like, let's say you build bleed damage, so you're suddenly swiping these giant blade arcs and throwing around plagues, and it's like, it's awesome. Like, you just, like, I just came up with that off the top of my head, just thinking of these two classes mixed together. And that's why I want, like, at least a necromancer, because, I mean, what the hell is a necromancer mixed with a demolitionist? Whatever it is, I want to try it out. Like, the necromancer, arcanist makes complete sense to me to make one. Like, a necromancer nightblade, corpse stealer, like, I don't even know what you would call that. So, yeah, that's why I want to see a lot of new classes, because if they put a new class in and they do the Cranked Entertainment take on it, you end up with this unique class, but when you combine it with another mastery, you end up with a super unique build, and it becomes its own thing, and I think that's really, really awesome. So those three things are the reason why I think Grim Dawn is great right now, and as a small game. And the other thing I wanted to mention is Grim Dawn is kind of a success story for early access / Kickstarter games, and I think it's because the devs did not overextend themselves, because it is only like 10 guys making this game. So they're making this game, it's a labor of love, and they said, we're gonna do this, this, and this, and they did it. And they had a little, extra to build on, and they built that little extra in there. But a lot of times when you have an early access game or a Kickstarter game, they'll promise you everything. In some cases, like, say, No Man's Sky, they'll promise you literally the moon and the stars. Like, they'll promise you all of that, and then they can't deliver on it because they totally extended beyond their means. The fact that the devs are, like, sensible and know what they're doing also gives me high hopes for Grim Dawn as well. So it's a great combination of this really awesome game system with, like, people that know what they're doing, and it led to this really great game that will probably have a future in all likelihood. Like, I can't see it going away anytime soon. I mean, we're getting an expansion guaranteed, and I hope it does really well, and I'm sure it's going to do really well. And then Grim Dawn will be a franchise, and then when Grim Dawn 3 comes out, we'll all hate it. So there's that. Oh, hey, here's a question when I refresh the questions page, or the comments page, community page, whatever. Hana Surubi asks, could you make an in-depth video explaining / graphing the damage type of all of the classes and the potential synergies among the classes? Sure, I can do that. I can do a quick overview right now. It's not that much. So Soldier is physical, bleeding, internal trauma. Nightblade is piercing, cold, poison, bleeding. Occultist is bleeding, chaos, poison, vitality. Fire on the pet, lightning on the pet. Arcanist is all three elementals, so fire, light, and cold, and aether. Shaman is lightning, physical, bleeding, vitality. And Demolitionist is physical, pierce, fire, lightning. So I should really come up with a graphic that's not going to be here, even though I'm making the gesture. I'll come up with a graphic that has all the damage types and all the classes, and it'll be graphed out, so you can see that visually. But yeah, that's the basics are pretty much that list I just said. And a lot of what the ability skill overview things are right now are going over that too. So if you see a particular skill you want to use, I'm doing a video series right now. It's not complete yet, obviously. It's not going to be complete for a while yet, obviously. That is going skill by skill by skill by skill by skill, basically pointing out all the synergies as well. But I can do a basics video on that. I do have a basics video on resistances. Sort of a really casual 20-minute talk or so about how to gear for resistances in the game. And we'll see what happens for Friday's video. It's going to be something a little special if I can get it out. But I think that's going to cover all of the questions asked in this video. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for helping get me to 3K subs. And I'll see you guys next time.